Hello and welcome to the Figge Art Museum's Virtual Thursdays of the Figge series. My name is Melissa Moore and I'm Director of Education here at the Figge, and I'm happy you could join us tonight for this exciting program. For the time being, we're hosting these virtual programs most Thursday nights, so please check out the Figge's website for information on upcoming programs. So next week will be the live premiere of the films from Urban Exposure. This is a program we've been looking forward to with great anticipation. For those of you who were around last year at this time, we went ahead and premiered the Urban Exposure films that time too. We're really excited that we're able to do it even though we're on this virtual realm. So that program is going to begin at 6:30 p.m. Central. And just like this week, after registering online, you'll receive a link to join the program on the evening that the program is scheduled. We're able to offer these free Thursday programs at no cost to you, thanks to the generous sponsorship provided by Chris and Mary Rayburn. Chris and Mary, for that, we're so grateful. Thank you. While these programs are free to watch, I do encourage you to consider becoming a Figge member. Your support as a Figge member is vital to the museum now more than ever. Membership generates revenue needed to support exhibitions, educational programs for both adults and children, care for the collection, and really so much more. So we're recording tonight's program and we're streaming the program live to the Figge's Facebook page. So welcome to all of you who are joining us tonight through Facebook. Regardless of the platform you're using to watch this evening, we will be keeping an eye on both the Q&A box and also the program streams thread. So if you do have any questions for the artists, please be sure to enter them and we'll respond as we can. At this time, it is my great pleasure to turn things over to Vanessa Sage, the Figge's Assistant Curator, who will introduce tonight's program. Vanessa, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. We are thrilled to present Seating by Design to the Quad Cities community. Thoughtfully curated by Monica Correia, the exhibition features innovative examples of 21st century design by 23 former students of the University of Iowa's 3D Design MFA, MA, and BFA programs. Works by Professor Correia and works by the former head of the program, Professor Hung-Soo Koo, are also featured. The designs include chairs, stools, and soft form seating that embody the varied materials, technologies, and formal solutions possible in the field. Seating by Design will be on display in the Figge Art Museum's Cats Gallery through January 17th, 2021. It has been a pleasure to work with Monica, Vinicius, and Vaco on this exhibition. We would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to them for the opportunity to exhibit it at the Figge. And thanks also to all of the designers, to the 3D Design program, and to the Figge staff involved in the exhibition. Monica Correia is professor and head of the 3D Design program at the University of Iowa School of Art and Art History. Correia received her cum laude Bachelor of Architecture degree from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and her MFA degree in 3D Design from the University of Iowa. Prior to moving to the United States, she taught courses at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro's School of Architecture. Her work has been exhibited internationally at venues including the London Design Fair, Design Junction in Milan, Italy, and the International Contemporary Furniture Fair in New York City, among many others. As professor and head of the 3D Design program, Correia and her students have exhibited at numerous fairs and received prestigious awards, including the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, Editors Award. They've also received a distinguished SOFA Connect Award for Best Design Environments multiple years at the SOFA exhibition in Chicago, Illinois. We are lucky to have a program like this one in Iowa and to have Monica leading that program. I'll now turn this over to Monica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa, very much for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having us. It's really amazing to work with you. So I will be sharing here my screen. So Seating by Design, this is what I'm going to talk about. What's this exhibition about and how we came up with this idea. See if my control here is working. Yes. So I have to begin normally talking a little bit about where I come from, because I'm in Iowa and I'm, you know, Brazilian in my heart. I was born in Brazil. So the landscape of the city, it's something that really leaves a mark. If you have the chance to visit, you will understand what I mean. So I was born and grow up in this environment with small mountains and the ocean, forests, botanical gardens around. On your left, you see everybody kind of heard of the sugar loaf. On the right is this image of the Christ and the lagoon. It's truly an amazing space. So it's impossible not to admit that the environment where we live and where we grew, it has an impact on the things that we are and the things that we do. Other elements of my city, they have the ocean and the sun, but it's not just about that. And I can go on and on about this. I just want to make sure that I mention that it's not just a natural impact. It's just like the impact of my culture, because Brazil was colonized by the Portuguese. A lot of our architecture and our craft and of course our culture is a big portion of that. It's from the Portuguese heritage, although Brazil, it's a mixture of people from many different places. So I am an architect, as Vanessa mentioned, and I went to school in this building. This is the Federal University School of Architecture in Rio de Janeiro. It's a modern building, and because I'm an architect, I'm always somehow paying attention to buildings and the design of the buildings. And it's interesting, and this is one of the motivation for this exhibition. Architects have a passion for furniture and in special for designing chairs. It's like, it's unlike that you go search about an architect that you cannot find anything like that in their portfolio. So modern architecture, we have many designs made by the modern architects in Brazil. So that's how the idea started, probably in my head. So I landed in Iowa City, and this is the building I work nowadays. It's a brand new building designed by Stephen Hall. The previous building was Jorge Moreira. And I landed here in 1997 and I got my degree. But then I came back and it's something I needed to highlight, because sometimes we don't see what's going to, I mean, all the time, we don't see what's about to happen. So I remember meeting my former mentor in a very casual way when I scheduled to see him for a portfolio check to see if I qualified for the MA program, MFA program. And that was the most, or the warmest welcome I ever received by anyone in any university. So I had no idea what that welcoming was going to mean. So he retired, and this photo is probably from 2005, around that year. I'm not 100% sure. Is his retirement exhibition. He retired, and I pretty much took care of the program. And it's important to highlight here what the time and how things were changing, because my generation and his generation, and another interesting element here is that he was also an architect. So Professor Hu, He graduated and started teaching in 1966 in Northern Iowa. And from what I gathered, he was invited to teach to be the head of 3D design at University of Iowa in 1968. And here comes another coincidence, is that that's exactly the year I was born. It's important to highlight that back in those days, there were no cell phones. Imagine a computer, that was unbelievable. And the process of designing was very different. So making scaled models, everything was done by hand. And of course, every development in technology changes what we do, because it allows us to play with other things. But I have to share that my mentor had a passion for geometry. And it's quite interesting now, a few years later, to look back at everything and had a more mature understanding of what's going on. So he had this passion, and he truly believed that things were connected, and that a curve needs to be in harmony with a line and with a square. And it's very clear in these 3 examples that are in the exhibition from the 80s. I invite you all to check his website, which the address I'm sharing. He was an artist in so many ways and did too many things. It's just unbelievable. So you guys should check him out. So my work was in this transition. And of course, I'm not going to talk about my work today. It's just about the exhibition, but it's important to highlight what happened and where things are coming from, because that matters. Where we came from matters. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So when I look at the transition time, technology became a major tool to build things. So my personality is different, and I was interested in trying different things. I'm always like, oh, I have this idea, I have a dream, and I want to see how that changes. I don't necessarily stick with one thing and just work with that material or that way of doing things. I like to try different things, because my dreams they don't follow a chronological sequence that is very logical sometimes. So in this piece, I was working with computer, but I decided to work with my hands. And I was also interested in sustainable material. This was a biofoam that was being used for making surfing boards. And so I designed this piece inspired by the Etretat stones I saw in the north of France, Etretat Beach. And so everything started in the computer, and then I end up carving by hand. So this was 2007. And then in 2008, I said, wait a minute. Now I started in the computer, but now I want to finish in the computer. So I was able to write a grant and get a grant from the University of Iowa, the Iowa and Humanities Initiative grant, that allowed me to fabricate and make this dream come true. So I designed it with computer modeling, and then I produced with CNC, computer numerical control technology, and milling. And to somehow make contrast and relate to my mentor's work, because I think we are impacted by our mentors. I also had a passion for circles, but the computer allowed me to do things that were not possible before. So I totally agree with how harmonious the curves had to be. And this is what I was trying with this piece. The next piece is, all of these organic forms, I am convinced that they all come from my experience in Brazil with my environment there. So this piece it's somewhat related to geometry too, but using computers. Is like, okay, my mentor did, creating a design with surfaces. I want to make surfaces with linear forms that are highly decorated, looking like rickrack, and look at, and investigate the contrast between the seating area and this area under the seat. And then soon after that, my interest in geometry, working with computer software, was to, okay, how can I want to make these organic forms. How do I slice this with the modern software? Doing something like this in 1980s would be years of building. And nowadays, actually between 12 and now 20, there is even more advancement in that field. So this is sort of to give a background, and the pieces are in the exhibition. I invite everybody to check it out. One of the things that I learned as soon as I got in Iowa and I was a grad student was the ability to say, I want to do this, so what do I need to do this? And I started back in those days this idea of doing exhibitions, because in Brazil as an architect, after I got my degree, I worked for 12 years as a professional architect, primarily with commercial interior design. So I never had a chance to really organize. In fact, I remember helping with some kind of organizing of an exhibition in Rio, in the company I was working for, but nothing like something that I generate the concept and I do it. So I started this idea and falling in love with having exhibitions, because it's truly when we see the work in some kind of environment that the visitor can has the opportunity to say something. They like it or they don't like it. It's okay. Sometimes it's hard to understand that what we are really trying to do here is experimenting with something, learning from the process. So anyway, so during the 18 years of teaching at the University of Iowa, I did a couple of exhibitions. I lost count. I traveled with my students, and this is not, I'm not talking about my personal work and my research. I traveled to many places, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Istanbul, Turkey, Caldas da Rainha, Portugal, Milan. Students went 3 times. We were going to go this year, but got canceled. I don't know how many times we went to New York, Chicago, and towns in Iowa, Davenport. So in these opportunities, it's really when the people that are working with you a little more close and really dig into learning and devoting their life to that experience, you make connections. But they leave, they all graduate. And then you say, wait a minute, what happened here? These people were with me and now they left. So then this is where these ideas start to combine. And I said, okay, architects, they like chairs. I like chairs, my students like chairs, people in general like chairs. We've been making chairs for years. My mentor was teaching that when he was here. This is not a new thing. So and then I said, where is all these people that made chairs? So luckily I have 2 former students. One is Vaco Darjania, the other is Vinicius Lima, both MFA students. That I first talked with Vaco and I said, what do you think about this? Oh, and he never says no. He said, yes. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. And I said, okay, but this is at this point is a dream. And then let's talk with Vinicius about let's work this together, because then this energy, designers need group, designers need to be in an environment of collaboration. That's the nature of what we do. And Vinicius said, okay, I will do the catalog and I will help you guys with the design. And Vaco and I, we were organizing many things on our end. So it was really like a collaboration between me, Vaco, and Vinicius at this moment in the time. Then the next thing was, okay, I need to check with my students, where did they go? Do they have the chairs they made? Hopefully they did, because they look beautiful. So I got in touch with my former MFAs, former BFA students. The MFA students already have an MA degree. And they said, yes, okay, we would like to do that. Yes, I do have that piece. I had to go hunting for images, and Vaco helped me what everyone did. And they said, yes. And then I said, where now? And then here comes, of course, Figge has two major things, which one is the wonderful architecture. And then that attracts me, yes. And the Figge has a collection that even welcome Frank Lloyd Wright pieces, and he also hosts some of our work, so kind of them to have in the exhibition the University of Iowa pieces, while we are like in a situation that our museum is not yet finished. So I said, well, let me talk with the Figge Museum. And then the Figge is just like us, it's a collaboration. So I got in touch with all these people that you see in this list. And Andrew was, okay, yes, this sounds like good, I like it. And then everybody else just said, okay, good. But I have to highlight one person in this group, which is Vanessa, because the amount of exchanging communication was tremendous. And then was a collaboration between my group and the Figge group that she made the bridge, and it was just wonderful. It's someone that I want to work with her. It's just because it was so beautiful. We had meetings, and our summertime was planning this exhibition. So the Figge said yes. And now, okay, now we have everything we need. We need somebody to write our catalog forward. And so I, of course, thought about one person that my colleague of mine in the School of Art and Art History at the University of Iowa, Barbara Mooney, that I respect very much her work. And she accepted the invitation to, and she really wrote a really beautiful foreword for our catalog. Now comes the other problem, is we have all of these pieces, and how do we divide? When you look backwards and you see all the work that people did, and you really find out what was going on in different times, in different minds, how each one of them had a different interpretation of the assignment, even though the assignment many times was the same. And some of them, I welcome showing what they were currently doing, which was just beautiful. Why not? We want to see what my former students are also currently doing. So Vinicius spent endless hours organizing these things and talking with me and Vaco. And we end up agreeing that this would be the best way to categorize and create an exhibition that made sense for the public. So the exhibition is divided in 6 categories. One is assemble, which is like how you put pieces together. I'm going to quickly explain. Put pieces together to make a seat and a back. Combine is when you're mixing materials. Form is when you play with the material and you create a form. Layer is when you're using the layer idea, geometry to create surfaces. Play is when you're just having fun with the shape and inviting the viewer for either have physical pleasure or visual pleasure. And Hoop was about these stackable stools that are a really cool design that my students did. So we had to think of the plan drawing and how to divide the gallery, because we packed the gallery with work, and also provided the viewer a way to understand what we were trying to convey. And again, endless hours of Vinicius and I don't know how many Zoom meetings we had during this time. Vinicius designed a beautiful catalog. I am sure the museum is going to be sharing. It just came out of the oven. That's the best way to describe. I'm going to be sharing as well with all the designers involved. And I want to thank Judy, Professor whose wife, that allowed me to display his work. I wish he was here to see, because I think he would enjoy it, to be able to see what happened and how geometry became also part of this idea of working with computers. So this is a view, that is an image that the Figge shared with me, and gives you a general idea how the gallery is looking like. I invite everyone to take a look and enjoy the show, and I'm available to answer questions, see if I can able to have an idea of what you are thinking and communicate. So thank you.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing that little introduction to the exhibition, as well as the history of how it got here. We were so excited when you reached out about it. As the proposal was going around to the Figge staff, everybody was like, yes, this is so exciting. And of course, having worked with you before, we felt the same way. So it was a great collaboration. Thank you. And thank you, Vanessa. It just looks stunning. So we do have a question about, I mean, this was a massive undertaking to pull all this together, especially during COVID. If you had known about the pandemic, would you have, like, what was the timing there with the pandemic? Like, were you in conversations before it happened? Or, you know, the question kind of gets at, how did the pandemic impact how this all came together beyond just having to move the meetings to Zoom?
Actually, it did not impact it much, which is kind of unbelievable. I would say the dream of having the show started last year. And Vaco and I, we were already talking, and this was our early conversation, because I like to have someone to share. And I like to have one of my former students, and in this case, Vaco has a really long experience with me. He was also my BFA student. And personally, he had his work exhibited in Milan. So he knows what I am talking about when it means like setting up a show. So we talked about that. And then I think the Figge, the pandemic came, and we said, how are we going to do this? We're just going to continue and see where we are. So when we contacted the Figge, we were actually lucky to be able to do this. And I remember you guys also not being too sure, because at one point we did not know what exactly was going to look like, but here we are.
Well, and it looks fantastic again. Congratulations. Was there anything that changed in the layout when you got the pieces in the space, or did it come together exactly as you had discussed and planned?
I don't think so. Vanessa probably moved a few things. If they were like 10 degrees, she moved it to 0 degrees. And I went there and it was fantastic. So that's what I'm saying. She was thinking just in harmony. Like it's almost like as I had her as a student. She could read my brain, I felt like.
Which is a great relationship to have as you enter into that. There was the question that popped up as a secondary to that one. Who decided on the exact placement of the items? I know you talked a bit about the conversations leading up, but can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yes, so we had a discussion on, because Vinicius, I needed to point out that he's also an architect. And Vinicius was a student of mine in that same school that I shared where I got my degree from. I also taught there before I taught in Iowa. And I actually invited him to come to Iowa to be my grad student. So, and again, many years of collaboration with him. So we talked and he was drafting everything. So and he was also proposing other ways of doing. So I think when I saw his schedule drawing, he probably had at least 20 ideas for the space. But the challenge was, how do we make sense? It's always, how do you organize? Because, and colors as well. So we had to kind of have an idea and things plotted in space, which color is what goes next to next. So that is harmonious.
And I think we got a sense of that not only from the photograph of the installation, but also of that the plan of the gallery that you did that was color coded as well as to scale. I know it's always exciting to see that kind of behind the scenes take on pulling things together. Vanessa, a question: is this the first exhibition you've worked on with furniture, like that is primarily furniture?
No, the other exhibitions that we had usually primarily is furniture, and small objects come afterwards. But sometimes it's just about small objects. And as you know, I also enjoy doing collaboration, did some with Terry, with like larger installation pieces. And I did one myself at the Figge in the faculty exhibition. So, but no, we did furniture exhibitions before.
Well, I think you can really see that and how it came together too. Vanessa, how about you? Is that something that that's another question we have. Is that something that you've done a lot of at the Figge before, or was this new to you?
We have had exhibitions with heavy furniture elements. The first one that comes to mind is the Tiffany exhibition had some furniture elements in it. And then also a couple years back, Power and Tidy as well had some large furniture pieces. But this is the first one that I've worked on. It was before my time was the Danish exhibition that was done at the city.
Well, thank you both. All right, so the catalog. Does the catalog have images of all of the chairs or just a selection of them?
All of them. Yeah, I can share, but it's a long catalog.
And an exciting one too. I know I can see a couple people here who are probably very excited to get their hands on it. How about the actual assembly of the exhibition? So did the artworks come as a whole, or did you have to assemble any of them on site once they arrived?
Well, I currently have students in different places in the world, and some students had to FedEx, but not too many, because we are so used to work as a group that we figured ourselves how we would manage this. So there was a Saturday around lunchtime that we arrived as a big group, and we pretty much delivered the great majority of the pieces, I guess. Some students delivered their work by themselves. Vanessa had to help figure out the assemblage of one of the pieces that came in a box, but most of the pieces were together already because we brought them ourselves.
I would say that there was one that was a lot of, I think, are you talking about the Delineate chair by Sharon Krause? That was actually a lot of fun to put together. It was like a giant puzzle. So that was fun.
Yeah, she's in Utah, and actually her chair was selected for like the show, I forgot the name, how you guys call it, at the Figge, and she got an award with her piece. If she, I don't remember the year that this happened because it's too many years already.
I'm wondering if that was the Rock Island Art Guild exhibition.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably, yeah.
And then one of the shows you mentioned having exhibited before and collaborated before. I know you've participated in the UI faculty show, but also it was, I think it was Questionable Architecture with Terry Rathje and Steve Banks that was at the Figge. For those of you who have been around for a few years, you may recall Monica from that. All right, another question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you go from 3D models to the finished piece? You still have to create by hand. So how does a 3D computer image facilitate it? Can you explain that process a little bit for our audience members?
How the computer facilitates. Well, the computer allows me to quickly look around the piece and make changes really quickly. Depending on the piece, I print, 3D print. Depending on the piece, I cut with laser smaller models, and sometimes I cut with laser full-size models with a not so permanent material to truly understand the structure. So the computer facilitates, like it's incredible. The only complicated side of that is when the machine fails. And then there is a delay because we are kind of spoiled these days on how everything goes so fast. It's almost like I forgot how it was back in the 80s when Professor Hu was making those chairs. Yep.
That's how I feel about images, having studied art history. I remember the days of the slide carousels and doing slide exams with actual slides. So,
Exactly.
and you almost forget, but not quite.
Yeah, and typewriter.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
All right, so Monica, how have reactions to previous exhibitions redirected your work?
I think this is an interesting question. It's more about the looking around these exhibitions that I go abroad and in London and Milan. They give me an idea what else is going on. They're really helpful. And that sometimes makes me wonder about materials. And that's primarily where the changes are. And thinking about sustainability, this is a truly complicated subject. So I think it's more watching everybody else, and that is where makes me reevaluate the things that are going on. I hope I answered the question.
Oh, that was wonderful. Yeah, thank you for giving us your thoughts on that. I'm going to actually open that question up to Vanessa too. Is there anything that you've learned from exhibition installation before that you can point to that you specifically used in this exhibition? Or is it, or I guess you can even broaden that and say, were there any challenges or anything that you overcame? Actually tell us anything you want about installing the exhibition. We'd love to hear from you.
For this one, I just wanted to make sure that people were going to be able to move through the space, and the Monica and the team were just as on that, just to make sure that people can move through the space easily, that they can read the labels, and all of those things that you notice if they're not right or make things slightly difficult for you as a visitor to the museum. And also just that people would be able to engage with the framework. But all of that was, that was wonderfully planned. And so just, precipitating anything that would come up for the visitor.
Well, I think one of the things that stands out as we talk about audiences are the lines that they see within the exhibition and how uninterrupted they are. I know that you made the decision not to put any cording around or over the chairs so that we don't miss the point of the design that is at the root of them. And I know our gallery hosts were a little nervous about that, just making sure that they could keep eyes on all the chairs because they're so tempting. We all just want to go and test
Well, you
them.
noticed all the do not touch and the little do not sit on little things. Yeah, that is, well, that, and we also, I mean, part of what we had talked about is wanting them to be at a level that people can engage with them as seating, as chairs, and not have them, super high up or, so just accessible to people visually and that they can relate to them as they would, furniture. And so, yeah, I'm glad that we didn't do, any distracting stanchions. And I think it's been going okay so far. I don't think anybody has done anything.
Not that I've heard of.
Actually, I have an interesting comment about that because one of my colleagues here at the university was asking me if the chairs people could sit. And it's an artist that this question is coming from. And it was a little hard to explain that it's complicated because sometimes it gets damaged in the process of, sometimes it's a button on the back or something that scratches, and everybody would not think that this would be a problem, but it can be a problem for the piece. So I think this person was slightly disappointed that you would not be able to sit on the chairs, but that's how it is. All the shows I go that I see the chairs, I'm like, how much I wish I could sit on them just for my eyes.
And I've been getting that comment a lot for Huda's chair, for the Dreamer's chair, because it looks so cozy that everyone's like, oh, I wonder how that would be to sit in. He's like, yeah, you can wonder about that, but you can't sit in it. Sorry.
I think this one, just like we had a Lego exhibition, an architecture exhibition with Lego a few years ago. And that also, it was just for, I like how you say it's just for your eyes. But it's so tempting. I mean, the forms are just, they pull you in and they really are familiar and yet they challenge you. And I think that that's part of the, part of what drives us with this exhibition. So we do have another question that I think we'll just kind of wrap up with in an email that follows. It's actually to post the link for Professor Who's website. We can post it here, but also I'm thinking that it might make more sense for me to email it. So if you did register for this program, and I know the person who specifically requested this did, I'll be able to get that to you in an email. Just because as we wrap up the program, unfortunately, that chat is going to go away. So I think that might be the best way to do it. I do want to say, though, one more time, thank you so much, Monica, for joining us tonight. Also, thank you, Vanessa, as always. If you are interested in coming to see the exhibition, it's on display at the Figge on level 2 in the Katz Gallery. It's going to be on display through January 17th of 2021. And we will be having additional programs coming up for it, including an artist panel that will be on Thursday, November 5th. And Vanessa, I know you're going to be here for that. Monica, I think we're going to have you here for that as well. So thank you in advance, both of you. Yeah, we're just really excited about the exhibition and the programming. And if you are not yet comfortable going to the Figge to see the exhibition, we understand. We just encourage you to explore the resources that we have available online. And hopefully we'll be able to see you there when you're comfortable doing so. Just with that, I just want to say thank you again, Monica, Vanessa, and thank you to all of our audience members and to the artists I know who are on this program listening. Many of you will hear from in the future. Just have a wonderful night, everyone, and we'll see you soon. All right, thanks.